our team. So as you all can see here, Christina, Jordan, and myself are here. We're gonna do a little introductions of like why our team is interested and yeah, why we got interested in the first place. Christina, do you mind if I just toss over to you to do the policy side?
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Christina, and I'm a policy coordinator. And why I became interested in policy was due to the fact that I really wanted everyone, every foster youth to have access to enrichment activities. And so since I was 14, 15 years old, I've been working on really trying to promote access to enrichment activities. And as you see, this is still a huge thing that's going on in this organization. And, but it definitely got me into this policy realm of wanting to make sure that things are being implemented the way that they should be, and the intentions of bills and the intentions of policies are actually held through, and that young people can really experience a better system than I experienced as a young person in the system. But again, my name's Christina, policy coordinator. I do have the privilege of also introducing Michaela, who some of y'all know. She used to be the policy manager here, but she has transitioned into a new role in a different organization, and she's still around here, but she is a policy advisor now. So her role really goes around, really doing trainings for members and staff, as well as really giving us access to more networks in the community. But for the most part, you'll be seeing my face around the policy realm of things. And so I'll pass it back over to Jordan and Chris to introduce the ledge side.
Thank you, Christina, and welcome everyone to our open house. Do see a lot of familiar faces and also see some new faces in this space. Want to especially welcome Brandy, Mariah, Markia. I see Jonas here, thank you. And I see a 530 number, so I'm assuming someone from the far north is joining us. Just thank you so much for joining our Legislative and Policy Committee. My name is Jordan, use the he, him pronouns, and serve as the Legislative Manager for CYC. What really that means is giving a lot of technical assistance support to Christopher, Christina Tanner, and the Legislative and Policy Committee. Really my interest that got me into legislation and policy was really exposed through CYC. CYC exposed me to a community of leaders who have been impacted by the child welfare system. I would say my first leadership opportunity was being a facilitator for summer conference. And I remember attending a CYC workshop facilitating, and the legislative and policy team came in. At that time, it was specifically Vanessa and Serena, a staff and a member, who were introducing, marketing the application. And for me, I was getting exposed to facilitating conversation at the facilitator level. So I was like, let me bump my skills to the next level and meet with like how to facilitate those conversations in a statewide level. From there, it was definitely a launching pad, a lot of opportunities. I didn't know that I was going to have to go to California State Capitol to set the bill idea for DAC. We also went to Washington, D.C. and advocated for issues that were impacting the CYC membership on a national level, and really exposed me to other networks, social capital, and opportunities that led me to this space at this moment. So I really wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the legacy and work of previous staff and members who established the CYC Legislative and Policy Committee. And I'm hoping to do the same justice and kind of supporting your legacy that you want to leave in transforming the child welfare system. But as the legislative manager, like I said, I support a lot is to giving a lot of technical assistance to Christopher Hernandez. So with that, I will pass it to my colleague, Christopher.
Hi, everyone again. I'm Christopher Hernandez. I use the he, him pronouns, and I'm the legislative coordinator here at CYC. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Christina. A key piece of why I got interested in legislative work was through the Legislative and Policy Committee. I think back in 2017-ish. Don't cite that, but maybe. And another big reason. Oh, so I got joined as a member. and it was brilliant. It was fun. It was like we were working on bills, and I was like, whoa, you can make statewide change at like through like local organizing and then through the statewide organizing. This is a brilliant, and this is amazing. And so I was a little lost. I was a junior in high school. I was like, what am I supposed to do? I went to college here at Sac State. Go Hornets, I think. I don't know. I was a Zoomer. So, but I did political science at Sac State, and I came back, and my first day was last year at summer conference, and it was y'all. I was like, this is brilliant. This is CYC. This is better than ever. I was like, okay, sweet. I'm like, I'm back in it. I love this, the advocacy. And I just want to give a huge shout out. I know we have some Policy and Ledge members in the audience today. So if you just want to spout some emojis off for them, Legend Policy members, like raise your hands so people know who you all are. But yeah, it's because of y'all. It's great. Yeah, as Claire said. Hi, Amris. Hi, Tashiana. There's others. I'm screen sharing, so I can't see everyone. Yeah, and I would also like to raise this question. What got you interested in policy and legislative change as well? We can type it in the chat if you don't want, to answer it out loud. And then do we have space to answer it out loud, or should we just drop it in the chat? Yeah. All right. Yeah. If any of the policy and ledge members want to come off mute and just talk a little bit about why you got interested, I would love to hear. Michaela tricked me too. I know. She was my CAC up in the northern region, and she definitely tricked me as well. Clarissa, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, if I start breaking out, let me know, just because my internet is a bit wonky. But why did I join Policy and Ledge team? I really joined because I felt like I have been in CYC like long enough to step up into other leadership positions. And I saw Policy and Ledge open up about a year after I was in CYC. And I got to learn about what they did and what exactly it was that it entailed in being a part of the Policy and Ledge team at CYC. And I decided to sign up or apply, got through an interview with, I believe it was Jordan and Michaela, actually. And pretty soon after, I got accepted to, oh wait, was it an interview? No, I think we got elected. Good question, I don't know. I did so many things in CYC, I'm like, it might have not been an interview, but there was some sort of process, right, guys? And pretty soon after I became part of Policy and Ledge, and here I am, 3 years later, having done 3 terms of Policy and Ledge. And I really joined because I wanted to, step up in leadership. And it was a great opportunity to get to know the legislative process because similar to Christopher, I am also a political science major. And policy was something that very much interested me. And yeah, Policy and Ledge is a great way to learn about the legislative cycle, along with actually being able to interact with the legislative cycle and make change through bills. So whether that means creating bills or showing support for other bills. So yeah, like 10 out of 10 recommend, great experience. And yeah, I'm like, y'all should all apply. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Clarissa. And it's been an honor supporting you and seeing the change you have made, not only on a statewide level, but bringing that in a local level in the Los Angeles region and seeing the monumental changes that you are setting and really set an example for the rest of the state of how to support current and former foster youth. And as Clarissa mentioned, you know, this year it is going to be a new onboarding process. So there has been a lot of shift for individuals who have been OGs of CYC or have served the Legislative Policy Committee in the past. As you may have remembered in the past, the committee was a volunteer-based opportunity that was provided through stipend, and also may have looked at a little bit different engagement with Zoom or teleconferencing. Now with the transition of our programs being PTM positions, we are having a formal application and interview process. So it is going to be looking different because this position used to be an elected position, but now that it's an official employment position in CYC, we do have to standardize and making sure that we're having an equitable process in onboarding and being part of the Legislative and Policy Committee. So I appreciate you, Clarissa, sharing that point and that insight of how it has looked different. I do want to open up to the audience if there's any other insights or shout outs that y'all want to share of what got you interested in legislative and policy change. So I'll open it back to the group. So I do see a few hands, so we'll start with the stack first with Eric and then following Emers.
Hey guys, really what got me interested in policy and ledge is, I started back like 2016, 2017, somewhere around there. And I kind of just fell in love with the organization and how we go about doing things. So I wanted at that time to try and take a more active. At that time, we were still kind of being elected through our regions. Didn't get it the first time, but I got it this time, and I ended up enjoying it pretty well. Being able to work with other people on the policy and ledge team. Have a fun little retreat and kind of see a little more behind the scenes, I guess you could say, of what goes on with the bills that we present.
Thank you, Eric. And I appreciate you sharing that point of getting the behind the scenes. I would say CYC being a statewide organization, we do have a lot of opportunities where we try to really lay the platform for all CYC members through our day at the Capitol Conference, our Summer Leadership and Policy Conference. But I would say the committee is like, the behind the scenes, like the driving force that leads up to that moment, to that platform where everybody's being exposed to. So, these are the leaders that are behind the scenes and really setting the agenda for the organization. So it is one of those opportunities or programs where you're being exposed to legislative hearings, connecting directly with child welfare stakeholders, and really being the representative for all of CYC, not only for your chapter, but for the region and for the whole organization. With that, we'll go back to the stack. And with that, Amaris, the floor is yours.
Hi, so my name is Amaris. This year was actually my first year on policy and ledge. It was also my first year being involved here at CYC. I would say what got me into it in the first place was just the idea of making like systematic change for the system, because honestly, I was just sick and tired of like seeing a system that wasn't like by the kids. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it can't really be for the youth if it's not by the youth. And so I think that's really what made me think that CYC was so powerful. And then what kept me in it, honestly, was like the community. And I feel like after going to the retreat, like I got way more comfortable, like just with the concept of being involved with something that seems like so much greater than myself. But at the same time, I think it's like a really beautiful thing to be able to like, I don't know, support people who are still in the system, being out of the system myself now. I just think it's a really beautiful thing and a very powerful thing to be able to look back at this past year and say that like I was involved in something that helped like, like my foster brother and sisters. And so, yeah, I would say that that's definitely what kept me involved.
Thank you so much, Amaris. And I could tell you that you have been a driving force. This year's committee cohort has been monumental and made such an impact on the statewide level. If you have been following CYC's social media account, you may have seen some posts of, unfortunately, we're seeing this year has been a lot of legislation that has been harmful to current and former foster youth. And I would say that the committee this year has been a leading voice of stopping and preventing a lot of harmful legislation, as well as champion and leading legislation that will have a positive impact. And I would say that would not be possible with all the input, advocacy, and voices that are present in the committee. So thank you so much, Amaris, for really making the community so positive and making something that looking forward to every Monday and being something bigger than ourselves in this committee. Last but definitely not least, I would like to popcorn it to Tashiana.
Hi everyone, I'm Tashiana Brown, and the reason why I joined Policy and Ledge is because the fact that we were able to vote on what bills that we could, the fact that we were able to vote on what bills that we should people to support or not, support or oppose. It's like, wait, we foster youth or systematic youth have the power to say yes, no, or maybe, or I don't know, on bills that that can possibly can positively or negatively impact the system. What? You know how big that is? Like I'm still filled with joy that this year we were able to do that. And actually on both sides actually. And I just want to thank the staff for doing everything that they do, because you guys are awesome. Because and I'm done. But you guys are definitely join. It's an awesome experience, especially for my first year. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Tashi, for sharing their insight. And I had the opportunity and privilege to witness Tashi really deliver a lot of the work that the committee has done through her facilitation role. So not only leading the committee in these spaces on setting the legislative policy priority, but making that connection in our statewide conferences. So that's another thing that, you are setting the platform for our CYC conferences. So really it is impactful of your voice and representation and participation in this. This is a very competitive program and is in its nature, because you are going to be the statewide representative of CYC. And as you hear from Tashi, you are not only representing the CYC membership, but you are representing current and former foster youth that have been impacted by the child welfare system. So no pressure, but this is a lot of responsibility, but as a staff here, we make sure that we set the skills, resources, tools that you need to make sure that your vision comes to fruition in this committee. With that, thank you all for participating in the icebreaker, and I'll pass it to Christina and Christopher.
Great. Thanks everyone. Yeah, again, truly, it's special to hear people's feedback, because when you're doing something, you're showing it to an audience, you're like, how is this coming across, but I know we've shared a few of these things. No pressure. I know we shared a few of these things in our icebreaker, but truly, in order to give a best summary possible for people walking into this new year, this new application process, we wanted to give an overview of what the committees do and some of the great opportunities that you're able to jump into, right, as an advocate. And so we have two teams, right, the legislative and policy team. We're gonna jump into the legislative committee first. And what y'all were sharing, some of the exciting parts of it is this creating state laws piece, right? We as CYC have been the sponsors or even co-sponsors of legislation in the past, such as AB 2247 and 2417, as well as the bill that we were running at DAC this year, right? 1675 with enrichment activities. It's key to taking those like local items or those issues that young people are facing across the entire state and take it to the state level, take it to the Capitol doors, and truly create legislation out of it, right? It's one of the things that drew me in, and listening to y'all's icebreaker. It's something that draws, you know, statewide advocates in truly. Another key piece of the legislative committee is this opposing bills, like these legislative bills, right? So as a legislative committee member, we have the opportunity of voting on bills, right? And through this bill tracking or bill voting, we can actually better lead campaigns and stances on a statewide level, right? So to break that down a little bit, when a bill comes across our desk as the committee, we look at it, right? We voted on a bill last week, or might have been the week before. And the committee just listened and heard, and they were like, what? No, this is going to mess up systems. This is going to mess up local communities, right? This is going to impact students' education. And so they looked at this bill and they truly were able to understand it better and also take an official stance, right? So us as an organization can now go to committee hearings and give our official stance on the bill, right? And so, yeah, this is one of my favorite parts of this legislative committee, right? Is looking at bills, creating bills, and voting on bills, right? Jordan, it's open if you want to raise anything else on that one. But yeah, also, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat and we'll pause and take space.
Thank you, Christopher. As you know, our mission statement, we are a youth-led organization that's transforming systems through legislative policy and practice change. So legislation is one strategy, one platform that CYC members have the opportunity to engage in changing systems. You know, the CYC committee has a legacy of really establishing legislation that has been really looked up to on a national and international level. From CYC legislative committee has established extended foster care in 2008, from establishing transitional housing programs that has been replicated not only in other counties throughout the state, but other states across the country. I would say even the committee has set into establishing the housing and the HUD vouchers, or the Family Unification Program, the Foster Youth Independence Housing Vouchers. The committee was very monumental in meeting the Secretary of HUD as well as White House staff to share the experiences that transitional age youth had experienced in houselessness. So a lot of our focus is on the statewide level, meeting with state legislatures and stakeholders, but California being a state with the largest foster care population in the nation, we do have the privilege and opportunities to meet with federal representatives and share the advocacy work the CYC members are doing in our state. So yeah, the committee has a huge legacy of passing bills that has impacted many current and former foster youth, not only in California, but across the country.
Yes, perfect. And yes, I wanted to raise something that Jasmine rose in the chat. Yes, the legislative committee also gets the opportunity to testify and help educate others on bills, right? And so here you can see on the screen, just one second, I'm queuing over the chat. Here you can see on the screen, Katarina, thank you. Here speaking at the Capitol on AB 2247, right? This is our foster stability bill, and she's so well spoken, so I'll let her do the talking. But this is another key piece of the Legislative Policy Committee. Just one second.
I am here to present Assembly Bill 2247, which seeks to ensure foster youth have a consistent and strong home foundation and are not unnecessarily moved from one place to another. We harm our children and disrupt their health and well-being by moving them amongst home to home to home.
My name is Katarina Kabik. I'm 22 years old from Oakland, California, and I am a MSW student at UC Berkeley. I am also a member of the statewide legislative committee of California Youth Connection. I am speaking in strong support of AB 2247. This bill seeks to create a youth-centered process for stability within the child welfare system. I first entered foster care when I was just 6 months old and emancipated at 18. During this time, I experienced 32 placement changes. I was pulled from homes in the middle of the night and out of school in the middle of the day. I specifically remember one time when I was called to the office and my social worker was there. She had already packed a trash bag with the things that she thought were most important for me to bring and told me that I was moving somewhere else. I ended up moving to Sacramento from Oakland and unfortunately wasn't able to keep touch with my siblings. I was in 2nd grade. The thing about packing and trash bags is that trash bags are too fragile to carry futures. This bill is the sturdy structure that we deserve to protect our futures. AB 2247 matters because stability begets success. I like using plants as a metaphor because you can replant a plant and it can be transplanted and it can grow beautifully, but there's a process. In order for it to flourish, if you don't water it, if you don't take care of it, if you don't allow it time to root, then it will never grow. I just ask that with supporting this bill that you give foster youth that process, because we should have a system that people would be okay with their kids being in, but unfortunately it's a system that people are afraid of. I support this bill because I don't want any foster youth to go through what I had to go through. I still don't unpack my belongings, and that sense of instability still sticks with me years later, no matter how much I achieve or try. Instead of 7-day notices, instead of trash bags, we need this bill. The structure for stability is in your hands, and I really ask that you support that.
Yes, thank you, Katarina. Yes, this is a key piece of the legislative committee, right? Is this opportunity to go to the Capitol, right? To go to the legislators' rooms and be in the space and truly advocate at the statewide level, right? This is a key bill for me. This is like the Foster Stability Campaign. This is where I truly got started on this like legislative policy committee. And it's just, it's something about a bill that like really like pulls you in to be like so invested, right, in this. It's that gratification piece of when it passes, right, and that impact that it can truly have on young people. And any reflections or just like excitement y'all feel after watching that video, or just any reflections, I'd love to see them in the chat, look at them afterwards. Yeah, I'd just love to hear from y'all. Jumping forward, some legislative programs that we host here at CYC is the Day at the Capitol event, right? Who's attended Day at the Capitol? You know, you raise some hands or throw some emojis down, right? So this is a key piece of the legislative committee as well, or CYC as a whole, right? It's this opportunity for young people to go to the Capitol, right? We have a march, we have legislative visits all day. Not intimidatingly, but like we are at the Capitol all day, and it's an opportunity to elevate youth voice, right, at the Capitol and truly explain and truly show the importance of our legislation right here at CYC and its impact that it can have on young people throughout the entire state. Another key piece is our Shadow Day event. This is an amazing opportunity. It was one of my favorites when I was a member. It was one of my favorites actually this year in April as a staff member as well. Also throw some emojis if you attended Shadow Day. But this is a key piece where Our members, this is actually open to membership as a whole, but our members can go to the Capitol and shadow legislators, right? This is senators, these are assembly members throughout your district, people that are from your hometowns or from your counties, and you get to spend the day with them, right? You get to learn a little bit of like what they're doing, what they're voting on, how they're voting, and it's honestly just, it's an amazing event because you get to see that other side of it, right? And Mariah, just seeing your chat, yes, members do get the opportunity to testify in person, like in the video. Yes, currently, we've done some phone ones, like for AB 1675, we were calling in. Oh, Christine, I see that you answered that one in the chat, but yes, they do still. But it looks different, but it is getting back into the swing of things, right? So slowly, good things will come. And then finally, there's these legislative meetings with authors, right? We have this opportunity, right, to meet with authors who can champion our bills, right? In order to get through the gates, we need someone to, help us through. And this is an opportunity for members to be direct contact with legislators throughout the entire legislative season, right? And we have Juan and Mimi in the meeting still. I invite you to jump in the chat, or if you'd like to come on, but just share like what it feels like, or what these meetings look like, right? It's so fun to be like talking with legislators who sit on like the Human Services Committee and be like, hey, AB 505 is important because of this, this, and this, and here's how my lived experience applies to that. And if this bill passes, this is the impact that it will have on not only me, but the young people I know, or people in my county. And it's one of my favorite parts as well of those meeting with legislators, right? It's less scripted, it's more flow with, and it's truly where you get like the heart of advocacy at the statewide level in legislation. Briefly before I jump it over, or throw it over to policy, Jordan, I would like to, if you have any legislative committee closing remarks.
No, thank you, Christopher. So I see some questions in the chat box. Is like, are we going to be in person or calling? That is a great question. I do want to give a shout out to the members who've been holding it down during the pandemic. Special shout out to Mimi as well as Andrew, who had testified on a virtual setting. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, it was all shut down, and we were really navigating a new way of engaging the state legislature. And Mimi really elevated not only the membership, but also individuals who have been impacted by the juvenile justice system, and establishing a youth bill of rights for all placements. So not just statewide lockup facility, but as we're seeing kind of California making a monumental shift in the DJJ from statewide to a county, that all counties have a youth bill of rights for youth in the juvenile justice system and youth in the foster care system. I would say with things now opening up, the committee is now requiring testimonies to be in person. So it is going to look a little bit different. It is going to look different this year than what we saw for the past 3 years, where we were allowed to testify through the phone or video conference. This year, we are going to require testimonies are going to be required in person. I would say the downside is that you will have to reserve like an all-day thing, because especially if you're traveling from out of town to fly to Sacramento, possibly lodging, preparing and attend the hearings which could last between 4 to 5 hours. But the benefit is that you kind of see the process in action live. So you are meeting with the advocates, with the sponsors, with the legislators and committee members who are going to hear you directly in the testimonies. And there's kind of different roles that we have. You could either testify for the bill, as you see Katarina, as an official witness testifying, or you could come up and giving public comment. CYC members have come up to give their stance on the bill, whether it's supporting a bill or opposing the bill. those public comments are required to be in person as well. So I would say this year, if you're planning to serve in the legislative committee, expect to come up to Sacramento a lot often. And also, we are happy to accommodate if you're needing any lodging, travel, as well as if you need any letters of request, if you need permission from your employment or professors, we do have the available, and to show proof that you are in the agenda witness for a legislative hearing at the state capitol.
All right, so I guess we're hopping over to the policy team now. So with that being said, sorry, technical difficulties. The policy team looks a little bit different than the legislative team, right? The legislative team has a process in which it's a year-long process where you really get to see the finish to the end of some of the topics that will get put through the legislator, right? Policy, not so much, it's not as streamlined as that, but it is still such a rewarding process throughout, and it is still something that is so needed for our organization. And so our policy team it may take a year to finish a policy. It may take several years to finish a policy. And so some of the topics and issues that we are currently working on have been year-long processes where we have, committed ourselves to working on an issue for multiple years, as well as we have issues that we have just started working on within the last year, right? And so what does the policy team do? We do a lot of different things. There's different ways to get policy to really be implemented at a local and at a statewide level. But a majority of the things that we do is we read a lot of all county letters. All county letters are letters that are sent to your counties that really explain what a legislative bill does or what a policy is enacting into the local counties. And so when we do that, we read and make recommendations on potential edits to make sure that our voice is still being heard in those ACLs and then the implementation process, right? The policy team also creates toolkits to assist chapters with implementing different bills or different policies that may come up. We have an example of within this last year, we had a bill pass around flexible family funds, which was a $50 million fund. And our policy team was able to create a toolkit that really helped implement the flexible family funds at a local chapter level. And what we saw out of that was this enrichment activity pilot program, which some counties are implementing currently, and some counties are currently working on to implement that in their chapters. I'm sure a majority of you have heard about that. And if you have heard about it, can you raise your hand or show an emoji or show that this is something that you've heard about before? Right, so we got a couple people who've heard about it. The majority of the rooms heard about it. That's great. So that means that what we do at the policy level really does work. And so what else do we do? The policy team meets with stakeholders at a statewide level as well as a local level to make sure that the youth voice from this organization is really being heard. And being on the policy committee, you really have a chance to participate in those stakeholder meetings and really make sure that your voice and the organizational voice is being heard. So you can make sure that things are being done in a way that is youth friendly. And one of our major goals on the policy team is really to uphold the current statewide campaign. So with that, does anyone know what the statewide campaign is currently, and can you share a little bit about it? I see Jasmine, you know what the statewide campaign is. Do you want to share a little bit about what the campaign looks like?
Sure. We are currently trying to advocate for more system impacted youth to have access to enrichment activities. And so we are tackling this campaign through through the legislative way with AB 1675, through the policy side by trying to create pilot programs in some counties across the state. And so those pilot programs would basically be a controlled group of, it would allow a controlled group of individuals to receive funding for enrichment or extracurricular activities on a regular basis. And with that, we will be able to track the outcomes and data and use that information to inform us and other professionals on just the benefits and how this can impact the lives of foster youth. So again, our campaign is to get access for more foster youth to have access to enrichment activities. And we're trying to do that through multiple different ways.
Exactly. So that is one way that we are upholding our statewide campaign. That's a great example and what we're doing currently. Our overall campaign is called the Feel to Heal campaign. And this Feel to Heal campaign has 4 different segments to this campaign. And the 4 different categories spell out the word heal. One being health and wellness, another being education, another being a place to call home, and the last one being lifelong connections. And under this statewide campaign really falls under everything that we work on. The one that Jasmine just brought up around enrichment activities really falls under the health and wellness pillar, but you can really say that it falls under all those pillars because it essentially promotes stability and it makes young people feel like they have a safe enough place to heal at the end of the day. And so the policies team's job is to really uphold the statewide campaign and making sure that everything that we work on, every time we talk to stakeholders, every time that we talk really to anybody outside this organization, we are really mentioning our statewide campaign and how is that going to benefit young people and how is it going to, positively affect young people's lives. And why do we believe what we believe, right? And so Chris just dropped in the chat. I don't know what you dropped in the chat, Chris, if you want to explain what you dropped in the chat.
Oh, this is just the DAC Feel the Heal campaign logo.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyone who attended DAC, you have it on your shirts. You had it on the bags that you had. And so we will continue to be pushing that campaign until we eventually want to switch it up and try a new campaign. Jasmine?
I just wanted to appreciate the Feel to Heal campaign and how it kind of grew from the Foster Stability campaign. And so again, you mentioned those pillars, health and wellness, education, a place to call home, and lifelong connections. And I think it's so wild that when we started the Foster Stability campaign, we started to notice all of these issues in the foster care system: housing, not having quality foster homes, moving schools too much, all these different issues, right? And we're like, well, let's categorize them. Like, what are these issues? Like, what do these issues cause? Like, what is the problem? And we talked about instability and how we needed more stability in the system. And so again, as we tried to foster stability, we're like, okay, well, what areas how do we build stability? Okay, in these different areas that these pillars cover, right? And so we did a whole year of advocating around that before somebody even realized that, wait, if you rearrange these pillars, they spell heal, right? And so once that came out, we had a whole nother year, right? Of like, okay, foster stability, like year 2, foster stability to heal, right? And so from now, for us to continue to feel that heal and continue to push those pillars forward and try to create stability in the lives of foster youth in all of these different areas, I just think it's so powerful, impactful. And again, like you mentioned, when we talk about extracurricular and enrichment activities, it falls under multiple categories, right? It's health and wellness. When we talk about moving our bodies and having a place to express ourselves or process things mentally. We talk about education and how we learn from these enrichment opportunities. We talk about a place to call home, because a place where you can feel yourself is a place to call home. And we talk about how enrichment activities really support lifelong connections and putting you in that. And so thank you so much for sharing on that campaign. And I think it's so impactful how we build on these from the years past, and we bring that forward. And so I don't know, just a plug for the Policy Ledge team. This is it's a huge collective issue, a collective power, and it's pushed forward with this collective vision. I think that's just so powerful and inspiring. So it's my little piece I want to add.
I definitely want to shout out to Jasmine, as Jasmine has been here, has uplifted a lot of the Field to Heal. A lot of the foster stability campaign has been around from the start of this, and so it's really awesome to hear that it is something that we've continued and pushed, and we're still uplifting the same message, it just looks a little different. And so shout out to all the Policy and Ledge, the former Policy and Ledge committee members who have really made that possible, because again, this is what the Policy and Ledge committee does. They have the opportunity to make this a thing, and really push a lot of the things and campaigns that we want to push, and so shout out to them. I do want to uplift a couple of the comments that I saw in the chat. Markia asked, is Policy and Ledge one committee, or is there a policy committee and a ledge committee? So for all you people who have experienced the Policy and Ledge committee, this year's Policy and Ledge committee is going to look a little bit different. And so over the span of a lot of years, we have noticed that a lot of the Policy and Ledge members, we really want to make sure that they are able to really understand and be experts in areas of either policy or ledge, and together, right? So again, Policy and Ledge work hand in hand. We work together. We are always communicating with one another because we worked off of each other, right? But this year, what we're going to do is we're going to have a Policy and Ledge committee that will go to a retreat all together, and we will have the committee attend the retreat, and then at the retreat, for the people who are applying and get into the retreats, that you will then be separated into either the policy committee or the legislative committee. They will be split up equally, so there'll be 7 policy committee members and there'll be 7 legislative committee members. But bi-weekly, we will have bi-weekly meetings that will be all together as a whole committee, and then we will have weekly meetings that are with our different sub teams, right? That way that everyone in the room can really have a piece of a task to hold, and so that everyone really is being intentional about the time they're spending on the Policy and Ledge committee, and that they're able to really be able to become an expert in one of these fields, right? And so I know Jordan, you have some comments to make, so I'll pass it over to Jordan.
Thank you, Christina. I think you said it really well. The only thing I could add is the intention is not that, the policy and legislative agenda is working separate or in silos. Matter of fact, it's the opposite intent. Is making sure we're having accountability and movement happening in both the legislation policy, because there are a lot of moving pieces. There needs to be presence and engagement on both the legislative and policy agenda of the organization. So the intent is that we're having dedicated staff support and member support to make sure that you are set in the position to succeed on what you want to change in the foster care system. What the bi-weekly meetings will do is kind of give an opportunity to report and see what support is needed. So if you are in the policy committee, it's not that, oh, you're not allowed to testify in the hearings. Actually, what will look like is, hey, the legislative committee, and this is just hypothetical, the legislative committee is working on a cleanup bill on extended foster care. They're working on the bill language, engaging with the coalition members, really seeing the bill every step of the way. But what the biweekly meetings will do is the legislative committee will come as like, hey, this hearing is happening on this time. Is anyone available to testify? Who has a personal connection on this bill? Does someone have lived experience on the topic that we could engage with their with the legislatures? So it's really the legislative committee is making sure that they are the point of contact to make sure the legislation is moving, but really the whole committee, it's going to be the whole committee effort and buy-in. Also, the legislative committee will introduce bills that CYC has to give stands. So the legislation committee will be kind of the gatekeepers of like, hey, we've been asked to oppose this bill or support this bill as a committee as a whole. Like, what should be our stance? We want to make sure that we are giving the opportunities where members are introducing these bills and being authentically youth-led, and that we are providing the resources and support. So Christopher, Tanner, myself, or like any research that is needed. If you have it, do we need to bring experts in the table? We will make sure we could do that. But really, we want to make sure that both the legislation and the policy committee is set up to succeed. So that's why we intended to be separate. Also, in just being very transparent, with the transition that has happened in CYC with the paid positions and PTMs, programs are limited to onboard how many specific members for each program. So in a way to have as many members as possible to have this opportunity available, we needed to split to make sure that we're not just operating as one committee with 8 members, like we could operate as a whole committee with 14 members. So really, we want to make sure that this is this opportunity is as open, and we could have it as many members as we can with our capacity for the organization.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. That was way better than my explanation. Definitely. So thanks for stepping in. I also, if we could go to the next slide. Perfect. So to jump into the next slide, what do we do in policy? Like, what kind of events do we have? What are we, really focused on throughout the year? Our first and foremost one is our quarterly directors meetings. And so our quarterly directors meetings are with the director of CDSS. So all the directors of all the branches of CDSS, and CDSS is the California Department of Social Services, and they are pretty much the people who write the ACLs that we read and look over. They're the ones who really have a lot of influence on counties, and they can answer a lot of the statewide questions that maybe chapters want to elevate, or the policy and ledge committee can elevate. We have a really special, exclusive way of meeting with the directors. Not a lot of organizations and groups of people get to meet on a quarterly basis with the directors at CDSS. And so during this space, it is mainly open to policy and ledge committee members. And so it's the only pretty much way that you can get into one of these spaces is if you are on the policy and ledge committee. And during these meetings, we go over highlights of what ledge is working on, what is policy working on, and there is a few times where we do bring in local chapters to talk about some of the local issues that they are running, but it's mostly policy and ledge members really facilitating this meeting with the directors, and staff really just sit back and let youth really lead it and facilitate in that space. And so I know there's a few people in this room who have attended a quarterly directors meeting in the past. Does anyone want to share their experience on what that looked like and what it's all about?
Can you repeat the question?
So I know that there's a couple people in the room who have attended a quarterly directors meeting in the past. So does anyone want to speak on what a quarterly directors meeting is, what their experience was like, and what it's all about?
can kick us off. Quarterly directors meetings is when we get to meet with a lot of, for one, the director of California Department of Social Services, which is the department that oversees not just foster care, but a lot of the other social services in California. And that's where a lot of like the policy and legislative come from. So we get to meet with the director of that. And then we also get to meet with the director of like some of like the transitional age youth units, IOP, and other like relevant departments that affect foster youth. And so with that, we meet with the directors quarterly or 4 times a year, every 3 months-ish. And we get to not just hear what they're working on, but kind of give like insight and perspective. And we also get to uplift what we are working on, some initiatives that we have. And so one example is like this past year at a quarterly director meeting, we were able to articulate that we really would like to see more foster youth access, enrichment, and extracurricular activities. From that, when the family flexible funds came out, they had, I think like maybe like 5 or 6 different uses. And one of those uses was enrichment and extracurricular activities. And so I feel like if we didn't have that conversation with them, that would not have been articulated as something that the money could be spent on. And so just from that one conversation, we potentially had millions of dollars already going to one of our goals. And so the quarterly directors meetings are really great opportunities to just kind of hear and learn what's happening from directors at CDSS, while also uplifting the voice and priorities of foster youth in California and in the system.
Yes, definitely, Jasmine. Thank you for uplifting that. And you're 100% correct. If we didn't continuously push CDSS on the importance of enrichment activities, it definitely wouldn't have shown up on that bill. And, you know, the directors meetings is really important for the policy work, especially because the directors are able to, you know, get us in the rooms of conversations that are happening about the issues that we are uplifting. And so, for example, when we were talking about enrichment activities, there was a lot of funding around complex care young people. And so we were able to uplift that we wanted enrichment activities, and they were able to get us in the complex care steering committee, which really uplifts a lot of the complex care needs and you know, conversations that are happening around the state, which are really impacting like young people who can participate in enrichment activities. So we were able to uplift it there. They were able to write it in a bill. And in that bill said we can use this money for enrichment activities, and then came out the flexible family fund. And so shout out to all the members who really did uplift that in that space. And, you know, that's just another step in the right direction to make sure that young people have access. And so, yeah, so Jordan uplift. Oh, hold on. There's Mimi asked, what is complex care needs? So a saying we like to say in CYC is that you don't have complex care needs, the system is complex. It is a term that is used by service providers and in the state that says if young people are experiencing a lot of placement disruption, a lot of behavioral needs that aren't being you know, met in traditional homes or in those spaces, we're going to label them with complex care needs. And these complex care needs, once you're labeled with that, once it follows young people and prevents them a lot of the time from finding family-based settings, but also this complex care label gives them access to extra funding services for different reasons, different causes. But again, we are also trying to, you know, fight around with that terminology with the state, because we don't feel like young people have complex care needs. The system is complex and creates needs that aren't being met. And so we really want to, you know, shift away from that. But again, join the policy and leg committee, and you could be at the hands of changing that terminology and really being, you know, focused on like why are young people being labeled with things that they shouldn't be labeled with. And so, and then to highlight what Jordan said, if you received a check from CDSS during the pandemic for youth and foster care, it was all possible with the meetings of CYC members at the QDM. Jordan, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, honestly, it was something I've never experienced before. Well, I never experienced a pandemic, so it was something that was new for all of us. But I would say, as the staff member, the committee was very quick in mobilizing and addressing, everything is put into halt, and knowing that youth and who were impacted by the foster care system were going to be disproportionately impacted and face the worst brunt of the pandemic effects. So the federal government, they were disseminating federal stimulus payments, and unfortunately, a lot of youth in foster care were left out if they were in extended foster care, if they're going to school, or if they were no longer in the system. So the federal government disseminated, I believe, $50 million to the state of California for the state to issue to support youth during the pandemic. And right away, we knew if there was no youth voice present in these policies, that we were not going to see them going directly to young people. And one thing that we, with the committee's research, is that these funds could use for direct cash payments. Like, they didn't have to go through another program or have a middle person. Like, the state could issue just a direct check to young people. So from that, CYC members started a campaign called Funds for Youth, and at the QDM really targeted CDSS, like, hey, we know California has $50 million, and we know that all that funds could go directly to young people. So if y'all got in the mail that Visa credit card from the state, it's definitely a shout out to CYC members who were there, because CDSS had these other ideas, like, we need to fund these other units, other programs, and we're like, no, we want this to go directly to young people. And we even saw this campaign being replicated in a national level. As you saw, Think of Us did the checks for us. And really, that was kind of a replication of what CYC members were doing on a local level in the state of California through the QDM meetings.
Yeah, shout out to those cards. They help fund a lot. I use mine for a lot of different things. I moved during that, and it was nice. It was definitely a great supplement. So yeah, shout out to the CYC members in that space. So the next thing that we're going to talk about after the quarterly directors meetings is, what else do we host? We host policy spotlights. What are those? Policy spotlights are are a way for CYC members outside of the Policy and Ledge Committee and any current member, staff, anybody can really join these spaces. And it really is an educational space where we're able to uplift some policy issues that have been uplifted either by the local regions or have been uplifted by the policy committee, and they want us to give information out to the rest of the organization. And so it's really a space where we can really highlight some of those issues that are kind of complex, but it's a great space for all the members to really learn about an issue and a topic. So we've hosted a few of those since we just started them this last year. And they have been really successful. There are some, changes that we are going to be making within this next year to make it more accessible to young people in our membership. And we're definitely taking all of that feedback that we've been getting over the last couple of them, and really trying to change them to make sure that young people, are benefiting it at the best of their ability in those meetings, right? Another thing that we host is policy talks. So earlier in this presentation, I mentioned that we have a staff, Michaela, who is our policy advisor, and she hosts the policy talks to the staff, so that staff can really help, support in the role of, implementing different things or learning about different policy topics that maybe your chapter's uplifting. And so she's really helped to be fully transparent. It's really helping on like capacity of maybe our committee can't run 48 spotlights in a month, but we can definitely host a policy talks for the staff, so the staff can really do local policy spotlights in their regions to members who have issues that they are uplifting in the policy world, right? So they are, there's been one so far, and so far it's been successful. So those are the things that that policy does. And we can hop over to the next slide, and I can pass it over to Chris.
Hey, perfect. Thank you, Christina. Blessings over your way. Hello. So as y'all know, you're here for a reason, right? You're gonna learn about policy and ledge, and a key piece of that is also that application that opened up last week. And so a key piece of the application is like, before you sign up for something, you're like, wait, hold on, what am I signing up for, right? What's that contract? What's that oath we're signing, right? And so an expectation that that we wanted to lay out for y'all is listed here, right? I'm gonna walk through them. Sorry, just catch my train of thought right now. All right, so the policy and legislative teams are a 1-year commitment, right? So when you sign up for this committee, you are signing up to serve the entire 1-year commitment. Currently, I think we're starting August 15th is when the application closes, and the 2022-23 committee closes, and then so it'd be August to August pretty much, right? Similar, yeah, okay, so I guess it would start with school with some people. And then there's also this expectation that members are also able to work 10 hours per week, right? So this would include bi-weekly meetings with the entire subcommittee, or the entire committee, and then also you would have weekly subcommittees, right? So this would look like I, a member on the legislative committee, would be having weekly meetings with the legislative team, but then every other week, so bi-weekly, I would also be meeting with the policy team over there. And then there's this key piece of an expectation of choosing into the core values, right? They're listed to the side. I'm gonna jump into that in a second. And the last piece is this expectation that members will be attending conferences and meetings as a team representative, right? So it's like DAC, Shadow Day, Summer Conference, SLPC, same thing. Okay, but to jump into the core values, the legislative and policy teams have created these 5 core values to truly communicate an expectation of what it means to be a policy and ledge member, right? We've worked for the last couple of weeks on this, and it's just a way to articulate those ideas or those core values that members have really been communicating about over the last few months, right? This idea of commitment, this idea of signing up or to be active in a meeting, right? Cameras on or added workstation, right? And so we've detailed these 5 core values, and we'll walk through them in just a second to really explain what a core value is, what the expectation is while you serve on our teams, right? So this first one is advocate. So through the work you have shown at the chapter level, and the skills you will learn through the committee, you'll become a statewide advocate, right? So this is a person, right, that has shown advocacy efforts at the local level, but now through the statewide teams, they're able to become this statewide advocate, right? So this is a core value first, right? Is because a key piece of our organization at CYC is this idea of youth-led advocacy, right? So the ability to advocate. The second one is facilitate. Through the course of your statewide committee assignment, right, you'll be asked to facilitate a number of different size meetings, right? We detailed a few today. There's committee hearings, there's QDMs, there are quarterly directors meetings like Christina detailed. And this is a vital part of this assignment, right? Because through this facilitation, we can grow our statewide efforts in advocacy, right? So a key piece with that directors meeting that Christine was talking about was, this is a table with directors, right? This is an opportunity to go directly to them with our needs and truly communicate our statewide efforts and our statewide advocacy. The third one is communicate. Our statewide committee work is vital to a healthy advocacy organization, and a core value of a committee member is the ability to communicate back with our chapters, which will allow for more mobilization efforts, right? So through advocating at the local level and the statewide level, through facilitating these different meetings, there's a key piece where this statewide work, if we're just doing it alone, it's not getting down to the local level, right? So this idea of communicate, right, is the ability for a committee member to take what they've learned and take it back to their chapter level, right? And even what they've learned at the chapter level through those local chapter listening sessions, and bring it back to the statewide work, right? This will keep a healthy organization because we'll understand what everyone's going through and what we're working on. This fourth one, dedicate. This committee assignment will be a year-long employment opportunity, like I detailed a minute ago. Through this time, you'll be asked to dedicate 10 hours per week to this assignment and equally dedicate to all core values. So dedicate, truly, it takes the whole core values and it puts it in one piece. And then fifth, demonstrate. The final of the 5 core values is an ability to demonstrate an understanding of the previous 4 core values and or a willingness to learn how to, right? So when I joined this position as a policy ledge member, or when I joined this position as a legislative coordinator, there are elements that we're missing. And through this commitment and through this assignment, there's an ability to learn how to do so, right? So this isn't a barrier to participating in the policy and ledge work, right? We've learned countless success stories of people learning what goes on at the statewide level. And so this demonstrate piece is, yes, you may not have it in the beginning, or you want to perfect it even more. And towards the end, you'll be able to demonstrate, right, these core values. And if I read them all 5 at the same time, advocate, facilitate, communicate, dedicate, demonstrate. It has a nice little 8 to it because we ate that up, or as somebody said in a committee meeting recently. But yes, so when you're walking into this policy and ledge application, please hold in mind these core values, right? Is this what we want to walk into with this new application process, this new employment opportunity, right? As CYC is going through. And if there's any questions on that, just drop them in the chat. And I toss over to you to team as we jump over to the resume. Sweet.
Perfect. So the next thing is going to be resume and questions, right? So Jordan said it earlier, you know, with the difference between the stipend position that the policy and legislative committee used to be and the hourly you know, rate that that PTMs are getting now, that we had to make it a very streamlined application process, and we had to change what this kind of looks like, right? And one of those pieces was making it include a resume, right? We want to give you the skills to build a resume. We want to make sure that you are ready for, you know, going out into the real world and getting jobs, because they're going to require resume. And so what better way of learning some of those professional development skills than including them right here in the application for a statewide opportunity, right? And so with the resume that is that's going to be required to attach to your application, there is a little support link that is on the bottom that you can click on to help support you really writing your resume, because resumes are hard. I did not like writing mine. I still don't know what to include on mine. I still would be a benefit from help on my resume. Not really sure how I got this job with the resume that I submitted, but we're not even gonna talk about that, you know? Resumes are hard, and we get it and we know. But again, we're also here as staff who have filled out resumes before, as other members who have filled out resumes in the past. We are all wanting to support and help you that be able to fill out this application. So if you do have any questions with your resumes, or if you want help really writing looking at what that looks like, please feel free to reach out and we will gladly help you. fill out this resume. So don't let that be a barrier. Don't let that be something that, prevents you from applying for this position. We are here to help you and guide you through this process. Everyone in this room can say at some point in their life, they hated writing resumes or they still do. So we're all in the same boat, So reach out, let us know. There's a support link at the bottom, so that you can also get help writing your resume that way. Your CACs also can support you and benefit and help you fill out this. But again, don't feel free to reach out to either myself, Jordan, Chris, or even come into our office hours on Thursdays at 3 p.m. to 4 and make sure that you get your questions answered somewhere, right? So don't let it be a barrier. That's not shouldn't be the barrier that you face in this application at all. We are definitely here to support you and help you. So again, reach out. Chris, you can go to the next slide. All right. So now that we went through what is legislation, what is policy, what do we do, what does our job entail, what are some expectations that the committee has held, we want to know if you all could raise your hand if you are interested in applying for policy and ledge. Now that you've heard all this information, who's going to go to the link tree, who's going to be applying, and who's going to be applying. So Jonas, okay, Amaris, yes. Is there anyone else who's interested in applying? Jonas, you already submitted your application. Awesome. Lania, you're gonna do it. Awesome. Jasmine is clapping. I don't know if that's a yes, Jasmine, you're applying, or if that's a congratulations to everyone else, but either way, yes. Mimi, Amaris, Jonas. All right, so we have some interest, right? So now's your time to go fill out the application. So you heard all this information. Now it's time to jump in, fill out your application, and go from there. And if you're still on the edge of applying, or you still have a little bit of questions and maybe this isn't the space that you want to bring those questions up at, feel free to reach out to, again, either myself, Jordan, Chris, and we really can talk you through what this legislation policy and ledge committee is going to look like. How can we support you in being a better advocate? How can we support you in being a better individual as a person, right? So just reach out, communicate. That's all we ask. We are here to support you. We want this to be as youth-led as possible. And without youth, there is no youth-led. So we need as many youth to apply as possible. And we need you in the room. We need your voice. We need it to be uplifted at the statewide level. This is your opportunity. This is your chance. So please apply. I'm pretty sure I should become a salesperson because I'm pretty sure I just sold everyone on this committee. So
Well, I definitely approve your message, Christina, and just thank you everyone for attending and for dropping all the questions, emojis, chat. It was definitely an engaging open house and really just a privilege to share kind of what the committee does in changing the child welfare system through this program. We do wanted to open up if anybody had any burning questions and concerns that wanting to address before we conclude the open house. And Jonas, see your hand raised, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jordan. Amazing meeting. I'm glad to be here. I guess my question, actually, I think I wrote it down already. I got everything. I'm pretty sure I got everything. But I wanted to make sure. Yep. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure.
Love you, Jonas.
Love you, Mimi.
I do want to remind you all that once we do close out this open house, that our policy and ledge current members, please stay on. We still have some more time in our meeting to go over a couple things that we have on our agenda. So the rest of you who aren't on policy and ledge, feel free to stay on if you want to shadow, see what it is like to be on a policy and ledge committee member and see what our meetings kind of look like and what our structure is.
Alrighty, well, if anyone has to hop off after the open house, we completely understand. Just thank you so much for sharing your time and present with us. And please feel free to share this opportunity far and wide. Like I said, we could share all the great things, like you're gonna change laws, you're gonna have this bill under your name, but I think the most impactful is the relationship and the connections you make. I am very lucky that I met a lot of mentors, social capital, and really close friends and chosen family through this program. I definitely wouldn't be here if it wasn't with the support of staff and members from the Legislative and Policy Committee. So whatever you want to receive from this opportunity, we want to make sure that you take full advantage of it. And yeah, let us know if you have any questions. We're happy to chat offline. But with that, we're going to be concluding our open house and transitioning to our Legislative and Policy Committee meeting. Thank you, Brandy. All righty. Well, with that, I will pass it back to Christina and Christopher to kick off our committee meeting.